According to General Hospital spoilers, Jason Morgan may say only 6 words to Jocelyn Jacks after she is revealed as a WSB spy. Will Jason discover out Jocelyn's secret and make a statement she doesn't want to hear? Jack Brennan recruited Jocelyn into the WSB and put her through the requisite training. Jocelyn is now misleading all of her loved ones while carrying out her first major task, but problems could be brewing. Brennan put Jocelyn on this Professor Henry Hank Dalton probe, unintentionally putting her in Jason's path. That's because Anna Devane assigned Jason to investigate Professor Dalton as well. Of course, Jason was already dubious of Jocelyn's Easter Island story, which GH viewers are aware was a cover for her time at a WSB training center. The show has been creating the groundwork, so Jason is likely to learn the truth about Jocelyn's covert career. Jocelyn may beg Jason's silence if this occurs, but will she get her way? Jason knows how to keep secrets in some situations, but he avoids keeping them from Carly Spencer whenever possible. Nonetheless, Jason kept Michael Corinthos' true fatherhood of Sasha Gilmore Corbin's baby a secret for a long. Jocelyn may believe Jason will maintain her secret, but she may be in for a harsh awakening. Jason was willing to conceal the paternity because it would safeguard Michael's parenting rights. It was all about doing the best thing for Michael, even if it meant lying to Carly for a bit. Jason may worry he can't keep Jocelyn's secret. This puts Jocelyn in a lot of risk, and Brennan is hiding something big from Carly while dating her. As a result, Jason may say 6 words that Jocelyn does not want to hear. You have to tell your mom. Once Jason has received updates on all of the upsetting WSB news, he may take a tough stand. Jason may insist that Jocelyn come honest to Carly, or he will do it for her. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jason will be juggling many stories in the coming months, so don't miss out on any of the action. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jason Morgan may say only 6 words to Jocelyn Jacks after she is revealed as a WSB spy. Will Jason discover out Jocelyn's secret and make a statement she doesn't want to hear? Jack Brennan recruited Jocelyn into the WSB and put her through the requisite training. Jocelyn is now misleading all of her loved ones while carrying out her first major task, but problems could be brewing. Brennan put Jocelyn on this Professor Henry Hank Dalton probe, unintentionally putting her in Jason's path. That's because Anna Devane assigned Jason to investigate Professor Dalton as well. Of course, Jason was already dubious of Jocelyn's Easter Island story, which GH viewers are aware was a cover for her time at a WSB training center. The show has been creating the groundwork, so Jason is likely to learn the truth about Jocelyn's covert career. Jocelyn may beg Jason's silence if this occurs, but will she get her way? Jason knows how to keep secrets in some situations, but he avoids keeping them from Carly Spencer whenever possible. Nonetheless, Jason kept Michael Corinthos' true fatherhood of Sasha Gilmore Corbin's baby a secret for a long. Jocelyn may believe Jason will maintain her secret, but she may be in for a harsh awakening. Jason was willing to conceal the paternity because it would safeguard Michael's parenting rights. It was all about doing the best thing for Michael, even if it meant lying to Carly for a bit. Jason may worry he can't keep Jocelyn's secret. This puts Jocelyn in a lot of risk, and Brennan is hiding something big from Carly while dating her. As a result, Jason may say 6 words that Jocelyn does not want to hear. You have to tell your mom. Once Jason has received updates on all of the upsetting WSB news, he may take a tough stand. Jason may insist that Jocelyn come honest to Carly, or he will do it for her. According to General Hospital spoilers, Jason will be juggling many stories in the coming months, so don't miss out on any of the action. Jason had spent years navigating the brutal terrain of mob politics, government lies, and personal betrayal, but nothing could have prepared him for the shocking revelation that rocked his carefully controlled world. Jocelyn Jacks, whom he had sworn to protect like family, had been working with the WSB all along. It began with minor signs: missed calls, inexplicable disappearances, and discreet evasions during conversations. Jason noticed, but told himself she was mourning and dealing with everything Port Charles had thrown at her. After all, she'd lost her innocence too soon and had been through too many horrors to count. Her brother was nearly killed. Her mother's life was a never-ending battle, and her world was held together by the rough thread of Corinthos' allegiance and the dangerous knowledge that came with it. Still, when the truth was revealed, it hurt Jason harder than any gunshot ever could. Not even Jocelyn confessed. It was Anna Devane, with a grim voice and eyes full of sadness from having lived long enough to know better. She told Jason in private, her tone icy and clipped. Jocelyn had been covertly recruited months ago by the WSB because of her proximity to Sunny's empire and her extraordinary intellect. They trained her. They used her. And she agreed. Jason initially remained silent. It weighed too much. The treachery was more than simply professional. It was personal. Jocelyn was a family member. She had grown up at his side. He remembered cradling her as a newborn, covering her from the storms of adulthood and promising Carly that he would always be there. And now? She was a spy. She'd been providing information to an agency that had attempted to damage his life on multiple occasions. When he finally saw her, the scene was violent and silent. They met on the pier away from prying eyes. The air was dense with humidity and stress. Jason stood motionless, his expression opaque, his presence overshadowed by a strong sense of disappointment. Jocelyn came cautiously, her face pallid, her body trembling, but her gaze remained steady and resolute. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she explained softly. "You should have told me," Jason said. His voice was soft, yet every phrase was loaded with steel. She tried to explain, stating she had no choice but to be deceived by the WSB, who convinced her that it was the only way to protect the people she cared about. But Jason has heard every version of that justification before. He'd experienced betrayal from folks who believed they were doing the right thing. He'd realized how narrow the line was between moral high ground and treachery. Jocelyn's confession revealed months of carefully veiled lies. She had shared information regarding Sunny's movements, internal squabbles, and Jason's own methods. She insisted that nothing would get anyone murdered. She had drawn the line. But Jason knew better. There were no lines after you let them in. He glanced away from her for a minute, the weight of her decisions crushing him like a mountain. He did not yell. He did not threaten. That was not Jason's way. But when he looked back, there was something final in his gaze. "You wanted to protect us," he explained. "However, you became one of them. You stepped into their world and didn't look back." Jocelyn's lip quivered. "I did it for the right reasons." "There are no right reasons when you're betraying your own." His words devastated her deeper than a scream could. She expected wrath, maybe even a cold shoulder. But the disappointment in his voice was worse than anything she could have imagined. It wasn't simply about trust. This was about legacy. This is about blood loyalty. About the invisible threads that linked their temporary family. Jason wasn't just angry. He was heartbroken. But what made things more problematic was that he still saw the girl he had helped raise. I remembered the feisty youngster who stood firm even when the world knocked her down. That part of him wanted to believe she was persuaded, that she'd wake up and realize the WSB didn't care about her or her family. They simply regarded her as a pawn. Jason gradually withdrawn over time. Carly confronted him, outraged that he hadn't told her as soon as he found out. She felt betrayed by both. But Jason wouldn't dump everything just yet. He needed time to contemplate. Jocelyn's treason threatened to destroy everything they had accomplished. And it did. The WSB's presence in Port Charles grew significantly. Arrests have been made. Warehouses were taken. Financial accounts were stopped. Sunny remained gone, assumed dead or worse, and Jason was left clutching the broken pieces of a legacy already under siege. People whispered about Jocelyn. Some backed her, claiming she was trying to do something the cops couldn't. Others called her a traitor. Trina was devastated. Dex walked away. Even Michael, who is generally the go-between for feuding family factions, refused to speak with Jocelyn. She was isolated, her decision harming the relationship she had valued most. Jason understood she was not evil. That was not how this worked. She believed she was being heroic. Maybe she thought the WSB would stop once they got what they needed. But Jason had witnessed how they functioned. They did not stop. They dig till there is nothing more to take. Eventually, he consented to see her again. This time, it's at a safe house far from town. He needed answers. "Why did you actually do it?" he inquired, not masking his exhaustion. She hesitated before saying, "Because I was scared. I saw what happened to Morgan. I witnessed what happened to you. And I learned that life never lets anyone go. Not without a price. I figured if I assisted the WSB, maybe it will end. Jason shook his head. You can't fix this world by handing it over to the people who break it differently. Jocelyn appeared to have aged years and days. The fire in her had dimmed, replaced with shame and the stark reality of consequences. I'm sorry, she replied. I truly am. Jason studied her, the silence between them rich with years of anguish and devotion. He finally spoke something she did not anticipate. You cannot reverse it. But you may pick what happens next. She blinked, puzzled. What do you mean? I mean, the WSB utilized you. They made you believe you had control. You were not. But you still know things. Something they don't. Her breath caught. You want me to feed them bad information? No. I want you to walk away. But if they don't let you, you can turn the tables. Make them pay. Jason wasn't seeking vengeance for the sake of pride. But he believed in equilibrium. The WSB had disrupted that balance by using someone he cared about. That could not stand. Jocelyn nodded slowly. She wasn't ready for redemption, yet. But she understood now. The struggle was not black and white. It was always gray. And in that gray area she had the opportunity to do the right thing. Not because she was manipulated, but because she decided to. Everything in Port Charles had changed. Carly was still reeling. She forgave Jocelyn, but the pain was deep. Michael maintained his distance. Donna posed too many questions. The Corinthian name was no longer invincible. It was fading in the court of public opinion. And still, Jason remained in the shadows, calculating and scheming. Jocelyn's betrayal had altered him, but not destroyed him. If anything, it taught him that even those you raise can turn on you. That authority is more than just guns and territory. It is also about trust. And once it is gone, the only way to move forward is to rebuild from the ashes. Jason wasn't sure what the future held. Sunny was still gone. The group came under fire. Enemies were emerging from the woodwork. But, amidst the tumult, he made a commitment. He would not allow the WSB win. Not through Jocelyn. Not through anyone. She may have wandered, but she was still his family. And family, no matter how fractured, was worth fighting for. Even if it meant bleeding for them. Even if it meant showing them how to rise again. Jason didn't believe what he was hearing. The world around him halted as the words sank in. Sunny was truly gone. The news had not been given delicately or gracefully. Instead, it was frigid, brutal, and filled with panic. An automobile collision. A twisted wreck. There are no survivors. That was all the information he had, but it didn't matter. Jason had survived the most serious injuries, evaded the most hazardous bullets, and confronted dangers without blinking. But this was different. Sunny was more than simply a buddy and business partner. He was a family member. The man who had guided him out of darkness and given him a purpose. Now that Sunny had died, Jason was left to pick up the shattered remains of Port Charles, as well as his own damaged sense of identity. The memorial service was rushed. Carly insisted upon it. She could not handle the silence. She needed to act, plan, and assemble everyone so that she was not alone. She didn't sleep the night the news arrived. She hardly ate. She coordinated every flower, made sure the Corinthos name was prominently displayed on the banners, and even positioned the pews so Michael and Donna didn't have to sit too near to the journalists. But no matter how well she planned the occasion, nothing could have prepared her for what happened when the visitors started arriving. The chapel was packed with Port Charles's most prominent figures, each wearing a mourning mask. Some people sincerely grieved. Others arrived for appearances. Carly could recognize the difference. She had spent enough time in Sunny's world to know who was trustworthy and who was not. What upset her was not the phony sympathy or the whispered speculations. It was Jason's face. He seemed lost. Empty. As if the breath had been stolen from his lungs and replaced with ice. He scarcely spoke, merely nodding to those who attempted to console him and keeping his gaze fixed on the closed casket. As the memorial began, Michael stood up to speak. His voice cracked early. There was so much he wanted to say, but so little that seemed natural. How do you describe a man like Sonny Corinthos? Many saw him as a criminal, but he was also a hero to his family, a protector, a father, and a husband, and now a memory. Michael strained through emotions as he recalled childhood memories with Sonny, But Willow's reaction surprised everyone. She jumped up, apparently disturbed, and left the service before Michael could continue. Jason followed her out, not out of curiosity, but because he was familiar with that type of anguish. He found her outside, trembling. "He shouldn't have been driving alone," she said. Jason did not answer. Willow turned towards him, her eyes filled with rage and confusion. "Why wasn't anyone with him? Where were you, Jason? You are always with him. He was always looking over his shoulder. What has happened this time?" Jason was astounded by her statements. He knew she was hurting and lashing out, but he wasn't expecting her to blame him. He felt a searing sting in his chest, but he didn't argue. Maybe she was correct. Perhaps if he had been present, things might have been different. He just stood there, letting her rage flood out like a tsunami crashing against him, without saying anything. Inside the church, turmoil was silently forming. Carly had just taken the podium when someone yelled from the back. It was a journalist wanting answers concerning Sonny's criminal history, and whether the collision was indeed an accident. Carly's voice froze. She stepped away from the microphone and headed straight for the reporter. Security responded just in time, but the tension could not be ignored. Carly returned to the platform, her voice shaking with wrath rather than grief. "Do you suppose you know Sonny?" she growled. "You only knew the headlines. He was more than that. He was a father. He was a husband. He saved lives you won't hear about and defended folks who never made headlines. And now you dare to doubt his memory?" She made eye contact with the crowd. "If anyone else here shares those questions, you're free to leave." There were no changes. Silence spread out, thick and unpleasant. Carly's statements had established a clear line. You were either with the family or against it. Donna returned home and couldn't figure out what was going on. She kept asking where her father was, but no one had the strength to explain. Avery was a little older, and she clung to Ava with big, terrified eyes. Ava, despite her difficult relationship with Sonny, was shaken. She had imagined a life without him, but now that it was a reality, the sorrow felt unnatural. Sonny had been a constant, fierce, uncompromising, unwavering, and in many ways immortal. The concept that he was gone for good didn't register. Jocelyn remained quiet for most of the day. She had fought Sonny only a few weeks before, accusing him of jeopardizing her mother and putting the family in jeopardy due to his mob links. She hadn't communicated with him since. Now she was troubled by her last words, which were nasty, biting, and full of frustration. Guilt gnawed at her like acid, so she kept her distance from everyone. Christina arrived late for the memorial, her face pallid but composed. She didn't speak or cry. She sat in the far back, staring at the floor. When everyone had left, she approached the casket and placed a single image on top, one of herself as a youngster, sitting on Sonny's lap, both of them smiling. She mumbled something no one could hear before walking away silently. Meanwhile, Dante was unraveling. He was supposed to be the stable and reasonable one. A cop. A son. But anguish knew no bounds, and Dante found himself spiraling. He couldn't help but wonder if this was really an accident. Sonny had made numerous enemies. Was it a hit? Did someone mess with the car? The official report stated mechanical failure, but Dante knew better than to believe the first judgment. He promised quietly to reopen the probe, whatever it took. In another part of town, Dex was dealing with another storm. He'd worked for Sonny. He was protected. I admired him. However, he was also involved in secret preparations, which may have contributed to Sonny being alone that day. He hadn't told anyone, including Jocelyn, but the guilt was killing him alive. He pondered stepping forward, but what would he say? Had he betrayed Sonny? That he might have lost his life? It would destroy everything. Nina was in pieces. She had been attempting to mend ties with Sonny, gradually healing the damage their secrets had caused. And just as they thought they were back on firm ground, everything collapsed. She grieved alone in her hotel room, clutching the necklace Sonny had given her, recalling every quarrel, promise, and kiss. She'd planned a future with him, but now there was nothing left. Back at Carly's house, the living room was full of whispering. People remembered, expressed condolences, and discussed the next steps for the Corinthos group. Some were already discussing power vacuums, as if Sonny's body wasn't chilly. Carly overheard parts of the conversation and instantly shut it off. "There is no vacuum," she replied. "Jason is managing it." End of story. Jason, still reeling from Willow's confrontation, returned to the house in time to hear Carly proclaim him the new head of the family. It wasn't official, but it could just as well have been. The torch had been handed, and Jason knew there was no turning back. He had to take on the roles of protector, leader, father figure, and boss that Sonny held. However, his heart wasn't in it. Not yet. Not when the pain overshadowed everything. Willow fainted in Michael's arms later that night, having lashed out at Jason. Her anguish moved inward, and she started hating herself. Perhaps she had distracted Michael too much. Perhaps Sonny had felt isolated. Perhaps she should have demanded that he slow down. Michael hugged her, whispering that none of it was her fault, but the words didn't register. As darkness fell, Port Charles felt different. The city appeared quieter and heavier. Sonny Corinthos was no longer present, and the ripple effect had only just begun. Nobody knew what tomorrow might bring. Secrets would come to light. Loyalties would be challenged. The Corinthian Empire would transform, as would the lives of everyone involved. But they mourned tonight. For tonight there was only stillness, shadows, and the faint echo of a man who had shaped them all. The next morning offered no comfort. The sun rose above Port Charles, yet the world seemed dimmer. Carly stood by the kitchen window, coffee in hand, peering blankly into the backyard where Sonny used to play with Donna. Everything reminded her of him. His words boomed throughout the halls. His aroma lingered on clothes and no one dared move. Every room had a memory, and each second seemed like another stab across an unhealed wound. Jason remained in the penthouse, answering calls silently and intently. He did not sleep. His phone never stopped ringing, with associates seeking guidance and foes looking for weaknesses. The weight of Sonny's heritage pressed down on him, but he carried it like armor. That is what Sonny would have wanted. There is no time to lament, only time to protect. Brooklyn consoled Michael and Willow, gently distracting them with stories about Sonny's headstrong charm and unwavering loyalty. Chase even came by to pay his respects, giving Michael a brotherly hug that conveyed more than words could. Despite the anguish, something darker stirred. Sonny's death was too abrupt and convenient. Dante's suspicions were not his own. Someone in the shadows was watching and waiting. And Jason understood that this wasn't over. "We just made a video questioning who took baby Daisy, and Willow was at the top of our suspect list. And then it was revealed that our top candidate is definitely the culprit. Willow, vengeful, is gaslighting and tormenting Sasha Gilmore. She toyed with Sasha's mind over baby Daisy so much that she now wants to leave Port Charles. And, as we reported in our most recent rumor roundup, Sophia Matson will be leaving General Hospital soon, while Sasha will leave Port Chuck with the baby." This week, Willow stated that she seeks vengeance for Sasha and Michael Corinthos' alleged betrayal. You understand, in her mind. We now know for certain that Willow is the one who has been bothering Sasha by moving baby Daisy around, changing her clothes and fiddling with the phone. Willow removed the sleeping baby from her crib upstairs, fled with Daisy, and then crept back into the house to place her in the downstairs bassinet, driving Sasha insane and making her appear like a paranoid liar, a crazy person basically. Willow's dark past. Baby swapping and custody verdicts. So, for those who are wondering, was Willow also the one who switched Daisy with another baby at General Hospital shortly after her birth? Yes, of course she is. Caitlin McMullen verified this during a recent interview. And in case you forgot, Willow was in the hospital at the time. She arrived at GH shortly after Sasha did. Willow delivered baby Daisy in court, and then she had a full collapse about losing custody of her children. So Willow was in the hospital, and it would have been very easy for her to sneak into the nursery where the newborns are kept. She's a nurse, so she could have gone in, exchanged Daisy with another baby, and then snuck back out, and the nurse on duty would have had no idea and would have just brought in the baby in Daisy's bassinet. That's where it all began. Willow's mental state and Drew's influence. Clearly, Willow's mind was fracturing as a result of the custody ruling. The other antics she did with Daisy at the Quartermain home were a little more challenging because she had to sneak out of her and Drew's house and then onto the property. Willow, on the other hand, had lived there for quite some time. She is familiar with all the entrances and exits to the house because she lived there. And because Drew is so busy with meetings and is frequently out of town as a congressman, Willow has been able to sneak around and act like a true crazy lately. However, she is the most obvious culprit for tormenting Sasha and Michael. Willow appeared to be a kind, compassionate, and level-headed girl when she was with Michael. And it's been that way for a few years. Carly Corinthos Spencer was convinced, as were Michael and the Quartermaines. But we all know Willow has a lot of wild inside her. Not only is her family's gene pool polluted, but she was also nurtured in Shiloh Archer's scary cult, Dawn of Day, by an insane adoptive mother. Willow's twisted family history and Shiloh's cult influence. But first, let's talk about Willow's DNA, which is beyond nutty and deranged. If you remember, Nina Reeves was completely insane when she awoke from her 20-year coma. That was when Michelle Stafford first played the role. Willow's granny is just wicked. Nina's mother, Madeline Reeves, stabbed Willow's biological father, Silas, to death. And remember, she sold Nina's twin children, Nellie Benson and Willow, and lied to her daughter Nina her entire life, claiming that she miscarried while in a coma, only to reveal the reality later. And then there's the fact that Willow's twin sister, Nellie, is completely and utterly insane. Willow has one messed up gene pool. And don't forget Willow's adoptive mother, Harmony Miller, reared her in a cult before handing her over to Shiloh to steal her virginity and repeatedly rape her while manipulating her mind. So Willow gets a double whammy of craziness, or a triple whammy. Nutty DNA, reared by a lady who worships a nasty cult leader. And then I'm convinced that Shiloh's infatuation with and mistreatment of Willow is the reason Drew can now influence her. Willow appears to be still brainwashed, but she has traded Drew for Shiloh. You know, one manipulator to another. The meaning of the name Daisy and Willow's revenge. I was also wondering if hearing Sasha's baby's name had Willow all wound up. Do you remember Daisy, the girl from the Dawn of Day cult? Her name was Daisy Kwan. She was very close to Shiloh and even performed the wedding ceremony for Nellie and Shiloh when they married in Pentonville prison. Willow might have also been triggered by the name Daisy. It just doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things why they would have chosen Daisy when she was close to someone who had previously tormented Willow. Willow told small baby Daisy that her mother Sasha had deceived her, and her father Michael refused to let her see her children, Wiley Quartermaine Corinthos and Amelia Grace Corinthos. Willow stated she and the baby were going to show Sasha and Michael how it felt, and she said we were going for a little walk. And of course she brought her back. General Hospital. Willow Tate Drew Kane Quartermaine detective chases doubts in Sasha's possible exit from General Hospital, so Detective Harrison Chase appears to believe Sasha is lying and or losing her sanity, and that's her phony ex. So I'm going to pretend Sasha has a history of doing bad things and going crazy. If Sasha appears unstable and shares living space with Wiley and Amelia, Willow may have an advantage in the custody dispute. And now I have two questions. First, would Michael accept Sasha's demand that she leave town? We have heard that the actress is departing.